Hi, my name is Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. For this episode of the podcast, I have for you a preview for a supporter exclusive episode called Risking It All for Myopia Management. If you're a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset, you get every single month a bonus exclusive episode of the podcast. This is in addition to extended versions of every normal episode or regular episode of the podcast. And this episode is specifically about my father, Dr. Cary Herzberg. I grew up in his practice. My mom was his office manager. And back then, in this pioneer orthokeratology practice, they didn't have all the tools and resources that we had today. They had to figure everything out from scratch, and there was some growing pains involved in that process. It's a great episode, and what I have for you is a preview of some of it. So consider becoming a supporter. MyopiaMindset.com is how you do that. You go to the website, click on the subscriber button. It's through a Substack. And I hope you do consider becoming a supporter, because basically for the price of a cup of coffee every single week, $12 a month, you get the extended versions of the episodes, you get the bonus episode, and you also support what I'm doing, my efforts to motivate, inspire, and educate more people so that they can do myopia management at the best and top level that I know that you're all capable of doing. So, thank you so much, and let's get to the episode. Cary, welcome back to the Myopia Mindset.
Hey, Matt, it's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
I know.
We keep, we get to press record on our weekly conversations. We used to do this, for the last couple of years, just privately. And I'm so excited that we get to just talk about the thing that we love so much. And listener, this is your weekly shot in the arm. This is your inspiration. And in addition to knowledge and education that Cary has to share with us. And hopefully our perspective can help model and put you back in the fight if you're feeling demoralized, or if you're looking for support or help. That's what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Cary, we just got finished recording our, your myopia mindset specific episode, and
part
we
one.
touched on part one. I think it might actually end up being cut into 2 episodes because we went on for over an hour.
Yeah, it was quite something.
Yeah. So I just may want to break it up into a 2-parter, but this is kind of a continuation of that discussion. It isn't your myopia mindset specifically, but your myopia mindset, encompasses so many different things. And one of the things I really wanted to get from you early on, because these episodes are primarily about, our shared perspective on things. And I'm biased. My perspective comes from your influence growing up in your practice. And part of growing up working in your practice was that, you as the doctor, my mom, your wife as the office manager of that practice, it totally occurred to me as, in your office that we risked a lot in that practice, to become like a pioneer ortho-K practice. The sacrifices that the two of you made, the steps, the lessons you had to learn, the important things that happened along the way. And I kind of thought of this theme as like risking it all for myopia management, because that's essentially what the two of you did. I like, one of those examples is dropping insurance, and I definitely want to do a whole episode dedicated to what that was like. But let's start with that. It's like, the two of you got to this point where you had to decide, like, we're not going to take insurance anymore, and we want to be an ortho-K practice. I mean, you still saw general patients for the most part, but the majority of your practice, like 80% of your practice, was ortho-K, basically, right?
Right, close to 90, actually. Yes, but the decisions that made that happen had to have been planned before that, even before you even think about making the transition. And I'm not suggesting this is everybody's cup of tea. I'm not don't think you have to do that, that you actually have to drop these vision care plans. But I think there's fundamentally a fork in the road that has to happen in your practice if you truly want to do specialty care. And that involves a few steps that these, you have to make as a practice. There is a change in direction of the practice. You have to step away from the what we call the vision care model, which is to see a lot of patients in a short period of time and spend as little time as possible with each one of them, because you don't get compensated anywhere close to what your time should be for. And then taking that path and actually building on a separate track an entire specialty care practice within a practice. So this is something that, that I think we can definitely get that idea across today. I think that's really kind of important because most doctors think they can do it all.
Right.
I'll build this thing within this, and I'll maintain my vision care plan patients. But really, you must then separate those two things. It's like you're eventually building something that's going to be doing fundamentally what you want to do in your practice versus something that you're being forced to do at that point. I always felt like we grew up in the golden generation of optometry and eye care and medical care, where we actually had less of these vision plans, and we actually could determine more of our real future. Instead of letting things be dictated to us, we could decide what kind of care we wanted to give our patients. Today, a lot of this is dictated to the doctor. Yes, they do make they can do things in a practice, to kind of give the patient a better care. They can find ways to do this, which is what we're going to talk about, that they can peel off these vision care plan patients and put them into different categories, medical care, whatever it is. And they can actually not only take care of their patients better, but make a better living. And the two things work well together. There shouldn't be this problem about, charging patients for services, because you can't do your services unless you get paid. I mean, you can't turn the lights on in the morning unless you can cover your expenses. So charge for services, but finding ways to doing that is critical. In these modern vision care plans, I look at this now and I look at the track that's going on, and you can see the effects of the internet. And you can get online glasses, online whatever it is, online contact lenses, whatever you can think about, exams online. And you think about, well, how are my colleagues going to compete with this? Because this is patient sits at home and does everything, they can be eliminated totally. And so the thought process is that you have to take this on directly as a doctor. You have to take this on as the threat that it is. Take it as a threat, but not the point where it keeps you from inaction. Take it on to like an action plan that you're going to have within your practice. And this could be for myopia. This could be for, like we talked about, medical care. It could be for VT, a number of different specialties, low vision, whatever it is. It's all the same. It works the same way. So I think this is fundamentally, the idea that you can have these two these things existing in your practice, they have to be separate. You have to actually have a separate way that you're dealing with this other thing, and you have to find a way to take these vision care plan patients out of that vision care model and into your private specialty care model. And once you've built that up enough, you're going to then have, your success will be set, because they'll be generating that. It's freedom. They'll be generating income to you that you don't have to depend on seeing 60 patients a day or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate something that you said about charging appropriately, because I don't think this gets stressed enough. Is like, it's not just about charging appropriately. It's like, you need to make a profit. You need to be successful with myopia management, and you need to put the appropriate mechanisms in place to ensure that success, because it's going to require more time and skill out of you as the practitioner. You're going to have to do things differently in your office, which we're about to talk about. But also, I'm going to do a video about like the top 3 things that all successful orthokeratologists share, right? And I'm still like, defining exactly what that list is, but staff seems to be one of the core features on that. And I want to reiterate that you need to make a profit, and this needs to be successful, because this isn't just about you as the practitioner. This is all about motivating your staff, showing them that there is profit in this practice, and that if they are able to adapt to this new style in which, or the way that you want to do myopia management, which is having a more knowledgeable staff that's able to answer difficult questions, that's able to spend additional time with patients and their parents, they need to be financially motivated to do that.
Right.
So it's like, it's not just about charging appropriately. It's also like, hey, you need to make a profit at this. You need to be successful, because that profit then will drive the rest of the program forward and forward and forward. Right.
Yeah, I'd seen just to go along with this. I saw just a headline how they're having the International Myopia Conference in China this week, and one of the big executives from one of the major companies, I won't name names, said that parents and children are not aware, don't have the awareness of myopia that we need. They don't have the myopia education in the background to make these decisions, which is kind of like, who who's going to take on that responsibility? You know what I mean? Who's going to do that? And that's a big deal, because if you have to do education, your own education, and it's not getting done by the industry right now, I can't tell you when that'll happen, then you have to spend enormous amounts of resources doing the education. And doing education is not like you get instantly rewarded for it. It's something that takes time. You got to plant the seed first. And you've got to have the staff educated. You have the proper pamphlets and brochures to hand out, and the social media things that you need to educate your patients. And it's a process. I often will joke about, when I had an associate working with me, that the patients, he was thought that everybody comes in asking for ortho K, but that's not the way it works. It took 5 years for that patient to get to that point, 5 years of investment for that patient to come up and say, then I want to do this. And so that kind of thing, you have to figure out how to get paid for that. And it cannot be done. I'm telling you right now, it cannot be done within a vision care model. Because if you've made those compromises that you have to make with vision care plans and models, you'll do a half-assed job with it. Sorry, it's just not going to work out right. It has to be separated from that model. It's like you're saying in your practice, you got, this one thing that you're doing, which is, pulling those patients through with a soft lens mentality. I only want to see them once a year at the dispense. I don't want to see them a follow-up. I don't make any money if I have to follow up with them, because I'm not getting paid enough for that kind of thing. So that kind of a model, and I'm thinking myself, because I don't work that way, but I mean, that's what they're facing. So that particular thing is contrary to what works in myopia. Myopia is the opposite. It's very hands-on. It's very intense. It's talking to the patients, it's working with them, it's doing follow-up, it's getting the patients back in the office, for care. So it's the opposite of this other model. And so these two things are not compatible.
Yeah.
They don't work together really well.
Yeah, it is so cringe for me when I hear doctors who are interested in ortho care or myopia management talk about how it should be covered by insurance. Like alarm bells start going off for me.
Well, what they're talking about, Matt, is the materials.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Okay, I can see where there would be something going on with that, but that, again, we talk about this. Materials are not myopia. I mean, the orthodontist isn't charging for the braces, the wire. You're charging for the services. That part of it's not going to get covered. Okay, and that's the part that's. I remember back in the late 1980s, where the AOA came out and said that, they saw the handwriting on the wall. They said, you guys are going to have to shift your fees. Guys and gals are going to shift your fees away from materials into services. And we did, we were one of the practices that did that, and that really helped us because it made us transition into these other specialty cares much easier. But, it was one of rephrasing. The fees remained the same, but the material costs came way down and the services went way up. And not a lot of doctors did follow that advice. The thing about it is if you're in a service-oriented, if you're in a commodity-oriented business instead of a service-oriented business, and you're always dealing with this commodity price of whatever that's going to be at, that's a no-win situation. There's always going to be somebody that's going to sell it cheaper than you, or whatever it is, they're going to undercut you. And that is not where we should be at. We need to be emphasizing services that we provide, right. Global fees. This is all inclusive, as far as what we're doing with myopia, whatever it may be.
I mean, the way I like, maybe I misunderstood what people were saying, but I haven't always heard it applied to materials as far as being covered by
Hmm.
insurance. I have heard more often the example of sclerals being covered by insurance.
Hmm.
Now, maybe that is something similar to materials. I don't know, but no, most people haven't made that direct comparison for me. What I have heard is some docs who are dabbling in myopia management, ortho-K, be like, you know what, this would be a lot easier if this was covered by insurance. They didn't say to me this would be a lot easier if materials were covered by insurance. So maybe I have a
Well,
misinterpretation of
no,
what's
I
being
think you're,
said, but
you brought up a great point.
yeah.
In this, with the scleral lenses, and incidentally, as a pioneer in this field, fitting sclerals in the 90s, there are some plans that will, when scleral lenses are indicated, like keratoconus and other eye diseases, where they'll actually cover a lot of the basis for the cost of the scleral. Sometimes they won't. I've been in situations with some of the insurance companies where they really undercut you as far as the material reimbursements for what you even pay. They even pay you less than what it costs you to have the lenses made. So they're referring to this in one respect, but the way that and that's a medical application for an eye disease called keratoconus. Unless you get to the point where you have, and I still can't see this happening because myopia is so prevalent compared to keratoconus. They would have to get to the point where myopia would need to be diagnosed with a diagnosis code that's said specifically as a threat, as a vision, more than vision, medical. Okay. A medical code to the retina where it would be implied that this is going to cause.
All right, that's it for this brief preview to a supporter exclusive episode, Risking It All for Myopia Management. And I know you're interested in seeing at least a little bit more because you've made it this far. So please consider becoming a full supporter of the Myopia Mindset for basically the cost of a cup of coffee every single week, $12 a month. You get the full bonus episode of the podcast every month. You get all of the extended versions of the regular episodes, and you support my mission to inspire, educate, and motivate more docs to do myopia management and do it at the top of their game. So if you would buy me a cup of coffee each and every week just to talk about myopia, please consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. Thank you so much, and I'll see you at the next one.